I'm really glad to be here. Really thankful for the opportunity to talk about children's books. Uh, so I started writing back in, I think it was like the mid 80s when I was
Hmm.
writing for a humor magazine. And I really loved the kind of responses I got from the audience, but I didn't write anything for kids, like little children, because I thought, well, that's really kind of beneath me. I thought that, writing for adults was really where it was at. But then when I had children, like all of a sudden I thought, man, here's this little person. And uh, it just seemed to kind of flow right out of me. Like I wrote a story for my son that was called The Snit and George Franklin Wit.
Yeah, she
Because,
showed that one.
okay, yes. And the thing is my son, he was like 5 or 6 at the time. And he would have these outbursts of anger. And so I thought, I really want to be able to communicate to this guy on his level. So I just, this story just kind of flowed right out of me. And I wrote it for him so he could learn that he is in control, that he doesn't have to let his anger control him. And then when my daughter was born, we used to call her Mrs. Grabbington because everything, she'd pick up this and just jam it in her mouth here and there. Everything was like in her mouth. It was crazy. I even found her one time. I had left her in the living room and I ran to the kitchen to get something like a cup of coffee. And all of a sudden I hear her screaming, ah! I thought, oh my God, what happened? And I go running in there and her mouth is open, her tongue is hanging out, and there's half of a carpenter ant with his talons like dug into her tongue because she put this carpenter ant in her mouth and bit it in half, and the thing was fighting for its life and gave her a big pinch on the tongue. And so I thought, okay, Mrs. Grabbington is at it again. And then when I was a kid, my dad used to call my sister and me Grab and Snatch. So I thought, okay, so I'm going to incorporate all this. Mrs. Grabbington, so she was, there's the Grabbington I Once and the Snatchberry Gimmies. And so I wrote this story for her to teach her how to share. And I have some other stories I'm writing, like one I'm working on now. It's kind of like it's stuck in neutral right now. It's written, but I'm working on the illustrations. It's called The Little Blue Ewe. It's about a lamb who's lost her family. And so she's learning how to deal with loss by being accepted and also accepting the other barnyard animals, that it's not a replacement and it doesn't make up for the loss, but there's healing in community. So the lamb is learning about that. And my wife does therapy. So I have to try to act normal around her, and it doesn't always work. But I try to put up a good front. But anyway, so she told me that there are not a lot of books for little kids on loss. There are plenty of books on loss for teenagers, but not really that many for little kids. So I kind of crafted The Little Blue Ewe to that audience, and thinking of how little kids lose too. Like, they can lose a parent through divorce or death. I mean, there's all kinds of awful things that happen to little children. So anyway, right now I teach at a community college in beautiful downtown Lafayette, Louisiana. And I've been down here for about 5 years, and I'm now the department chair for fine arts. And the funny thing is I got the job because nobody else applied for it. And after I got the job, I was like, okay, that's why nobody else applied for it, because I was the only one dumb enough to apply for it. So it was like, yeah, great. So I haven't had a lot of time to work on my children's books lately, but I'm also working on my EDD, which is a doctorate in education at the University of Louisiana. And May is the graduation deadline. That's what I want to do. I want to graduate in May. And then I want to start writing again. I've got a whole slew of books. I've shared some of these ideas with Dawn. It's been so long, maybe you don't even remember. There was
Oh,
one
go
called
ahead.
The Girl with the Rainbow Colored Hair.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one, I'm really looking forward to working on that one because that's about this girl who she has, what's the guy's name? Uh, it's How You Remember the Colors of the Rainbow.
Oh, Roy G. Biv.
Roy G. Biv, that's it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Roy G. Biv. So Roy G. Biv is this little character who's like a little midget guy or like one of those little Irish guys, the leprechaun. So he's like a little leprechaun. And he changes this girl's hair to rainbow colored. And she is so angry at him because she's really different all of a sudden. And so she's chasing Roy G. Biv all throughout the story. And the line that she repeats is, "And as I live, I'm going to get that Roy G. Biv." And so she finally, at the end, she has him cornered and she's going to catch him and make him turn her hair back. And just then the clouds part, she sees a rainbow. She realizes how beautiful it is. And so she then has this like revelation that she realizes that, oh, wow, I'm really different and unique and it's beautiful. And so she has this epiphany where she recognizes that, yeah, this is really awesome that I'm so different. And so then she accepts that difference in her. And then, so Roy G. Biv is like, his life has been spared. So I find the greatest inspiration in life, and having children has been probably the best help ever to writing things for children, because like my daughter came in one time after they must have had a gummy worm eating contest at her friend's house, and the next day she got up and when she pooped it was green. And of course, being 4 or 5 years old, she freaked out. She comes in, "My poop is green." And I thought, that's a great idea for a story. So I wrote it down. And it's in my list of stories. And so there's all kinds of things like that. And so I find that when it's something that just flows out of me, I don't feel like it's contrived. Like I don't sit down and say, now I'm going to write a story for children. I'm going to write, it's just something, it just happens that way. And having children, I have a ready audience to test my stories on. And if they don't like it, like if my daughter looks at me and wrinkles her nose and goes, "That's not very funny," then I know, okay, well, I got to edit that out or change something in some way. But it's been a real thrill. And I've been very thankful to have made the connection with Dawn. And that was quite a story in itself. That was like one of these accidental meetings
It was. Yeah.
which was kind of crazy because I had written this story, The I Once and the Gimmies, when I was a grad student in Michigan. And I had a class on children's book illustration. And I wanted to work on this story that I had started writing years and years ago. And I had sent it out to a bunch of children's book publishers. And of course, they say things like in their webpage, like, "We'll respond within 6 months." It's like, 2 years later. And so I happened to be teaching a summer class with Dawn's daughter. And we were chatting one day, showing our work to the students. And afterwards I said to her, I said, "Do you want to see this children's book I'm working on?" She goes, "Yeah, let me see it." And she looks and goes, "Oh, this is cute. My mom would love it. She has a children's book publishing company." And I was like, "Right." She goes, "Yeah, you send it to her. She'll get back with you in 3 days." I was like, "Right." But I thought, okay, what have I got to lose? So I sent it to Dawn, and sure enough, in 3 days, she got back with me. She wanted to publish it. And it was it was like a miracle to me because, when you send stuff out, you never hear back from people. It can be really soul destroying, the rejection. And then to get that acceptance. And look, The I Wants and the Gimmes is not a household book yet. That's my goal, is for it to be in every English-speaking home that has children in the world. That's what I'd love to see. But for now, it has a small audience, but it's growing, and I'm really thankful to have that. It's the feather in my cap that I'm published by an honest-to-God publisher, and I'm not doing it through Amazon or something like that. So anyway, I've blabbed on and on and on here. Do you have any questions?
I think that I was just wondering where you got the idea of it, but you kind of explained where you got the idea. So I don't really know if you do both your writing and your illustrations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which do you find harder to do, the illustrations or the actual writing?
Well, the illustrations take the longest because my background is in painting. I have a master's degree in painting, and so I consider myself a painter as well as an illustrator. And so I try to make these paintings that are very painterly. You want to see one of them for the Little Blue Ewe? Okay, let me search here in my files. It'll just take a moment. Okay, so this is the cover for the Little Blue Ewe, and this took a long darn time to do this. I mean, just hours and hours, because I like to build up these really rich colors, and I use Photoshop to do this, but I really love to build up you can see there are layers and layers of color there that I like to build up, and I like this kind of painterly style to it. So this is not something that I can do in a day. I mean, making the composition right and all that, it took days and days and days. And let me see if I can just.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Let me see. Nope, that's a small cover. I can do this. Okay, so these are some of the illustrations, and these are not in order. But like her lamb family, all three were gone now, you see. And there's a little joke here with one of the illustrations. Let me just get over to that if I can find it. Okay, yeah, this is one of the early pages, and it's a double page spread. And of course, this took a long time to do this, but here's kind of like an inside joke here for the adults. Over on the billboard, it says it's mutton time. So children might not understand that, yes, her family was eaten. But adults could look at that and say, oh, it's mutton time. So yeah, that's what happened to her family. But of course, I wouldn't say that to the children. Like the lamb's name is Bijou. That's a name my wife came up with. And so, but there are a lot of these pastoral scenes here where I love doing this kind of work. I absolutely love it. It does take a long, long time. And these are like, what, 28 pages? Something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Most of yours are like 26 to 28.
Yeah, so that's a lot. And so anyway, there you go. There's a long answer for a short question. I love doing both of it. I love writing, and I have probably 10 stories written that I would just love to jump in and do. And so after this one, I want to work on the girl with the rainbow colored hair. And then I've got a bunch of other ones. So when I get on a roll, I can just write a story in a couple of hours. They're little rhyming stories, and I find that it kind of rolls off my tongue. I mean, I'll write the initial thing in a few hours, and then I'll go back and edit. And that takes longer, of course, but then to do the drawing, it's very time consuming, but I find it really worth it. You see that?
There we
Yeah.
go. Yes.
Okay, so yeah,
Oh
this
my
is the
God,
one
that's
with
so
the Mutton
cute.
Time billboard. And the billboard, this scene is one that I had taken a picture when I would drive to school in Michigan. I had about an hour drive, and along the way there was this farm that was it was a really beautiful scene, and they had this billboard there, but it was a Miller beer billboard, and it's Miller Time is what it said. So I used that image to draw from and changed Miller Time to Mutton Time. So this is that inside joke that the kids won't understand necessarily, that, oh, it's mutton time, like, so the family got eaten.
That's
So I
really
try to throw in, now this is something that I found out recently, is that you want the illustrations to tell a lot more than what the words say. And so I try to throw in these little sight gags, or some people call them throwaway gags. If you're familiar with the old Mad magazines, they had a lot of this stuff. They'd have sight gags and little gags like this, that like things going on in the corner or on the margins of the page that people wouldn't notice at first, but the longer you look, the more you see. So I try to throw these things in there. And so this drawing took an awful long time too, but this is that double page spread. So it's a twofer.
That grass is gorgeous.
yeah. It's
Thank you. So here the lamb she's pretty much the same in every image. She's always very sad. She has this tear, but at the end of the story is when she looks, and she's thinking about herself only. You know, the other animals are trying to interact with her and talk to her, but she won't even acknowledge them. She just walks on by because she's very sad and you know, thinking about herself. But then towards the end, when she has this heart change, she looks through the fence, and all the animals are there together, and it looks like a family picture that's framed. So she's like, oh, I see. Okay, so maybe this isn't my family, but they could work. And so she finds the healing in community, that even though her family's gone. So it's a serious subject, and I'm trying to cover it, trying to handle it in a way that's not frivolous or taking it too lightly. But I wanted to have some humor in there, because, you know, humor, there's healing in humor too. I think there's a place in the Bible that says a merry heart does good like a medicine.
Yeah, I really like those illustrations. They're so cute.
Well, thanks. So there's a really, really long answer to your short question.
My mom actually, she was getting her psychology degree. She was going to school for that,
Mm-hmm.
and she had to make a children's book that I don't know if you guys really remember, but the Oklahoma bombing that happened
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
in 1995 or 6. I was really little. And so she ended up, my dad's a firefighter, and he also is a pretty good drawer. So she wrote her own book, and then he helped her do all the illustrations, but she's never done anything with it. So I guess for the question that I have next would be for her, like, when you were doing your first book and you were going to try to publish it, what are some of the steps that you had to do? Like, what are some suggestions that you would give her for doing it?
Well, if I had to do it all over again, I would go straight to Dawn and not waste time talking to all these other people who wouldn't even respond. Oops. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my phone. That's my wife's turkey call.
Oh,
I put it on my phone. Scares the hell out of people in my office when it goes off. What is that? So, okay. Yeah, so but so I would definitely want to talk to Don first. But there are loads of publishers, and excuse me, you have to look on their websites and see what their requirements are. And some of them say that you have to have an agent, or they won't even talk to you. You need to be represented by an agent. And that's one of those catch-22s, because an agent won't usually talk to you unless you're published. But you can't publish without an agent.
Yeah.
And so that's what's good about independent publishers like Crimson Dragon, because they didn't require an agent.
yeah, I don't work with agents usually.
So,
And out of curiosity, why is that?
Well, they take a cut from the author. So, the agent gets paid through the author, and then, I can't give as big of advances because I'm a small company. So I'd rather give all the royalties to the author that I can.
Well, I like that.
Plus, I find some of the agents, they'll only push a certain way. And I feel like I like working with the author more one-on-one. So as the editor and the publisher, then I feel like I can get to know the author a little better also.
Well, I like that. So I would encourage your mom to send her stuff to Dawn.
Yeah.
I mean, all she can say is no, right?
is it just on your website? Like all that information is on
Yep.
there?
It's all on my website, crimsondragonpublishing.com. Yep.
Okay.
And there's a submission form. If it doesn't work well, I'm trying to fix it. We had a broken form for a while, and I'm still trying to work it out, but it should work.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I'll pass that along to her.
That'd be great. Okay. Anything else? Because I think oh no, we have like 6 more minutes, I think, on this one.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah, we had a few people in the chat, but nobody said anything, so they were just there.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because one of the things that children's book authors deal with, and really, especially in the arts, having to deal with rejection. And that can be really disheartening because you put your heart and soul into your work. So when somebody says no, it's like, well, there's something about me you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've had to really deal with, and to not take it personally when somebody doesn't like my stuff, and just like, okay, it's very subjective, and some people are going to like it, some people aren't, and I can't make them like it. But I was very happy to find a publisher that did like my stuff and was very open to my ideas, and it's a very unique and very rewarding thing. So if your mom sends her stuff around and gets rejected, it's part of the business, because it's a very, very competitive field. I mean, when I go to these Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators meetings, there are thousands and thousands of people who want to get published and who want to be the next Dr. Seuss. And, certainly I'd like to be the next Dr. Seuss. That would be great. But, you just have to keep plugging at it. And I think to be your true self, to try to be your genuine self, and that in doing that, you will find people that will relate to you and that will appreciate the work you're doing. If I try to be somebody else, then I'm not going to be able to make that connection. Because it's like with personal relationships. If I'm trying to be somebody else, eventually you're going to find out I'm fake. But if I'm my true self in my relationships and in my work, then eventually I'm going to find those people to connect with, and they're going to appreciate me, and I'm going to appreciate them.
One thing I was going to mention, when I get any kind of story, then I usually give a feedback either way. I don't just say, oh, I don't want it, and that's it. I will give feedback as specifically why I don't want it. Sometimes it doesn't suit my company, but it's a good story. Sometimes it just needs some work. And sometimes it's like, I don't really think you have a story there. But I will give usually pretty good feedback. And I've even had authors that thanked me for the feedback, even though I couldn't do anything for them.
Well, that's unusual. How do you like that? I mean, as soon as I get on a Zoom call, it's like they wait until then. He's on a Zoom call. Let's call him now.
Yep, that's the way it always works, isn't it?
Yeah, it happened this afternoon too. I had to do a presentation. Okay. Oh, okay. So, well, I know we have a couple of minutes left, but I do appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my work. And one thing I ask my students at the end of a class is, did you learn one thing today? So could I ask you that? Did you learn one thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously the stuff that I'm going to pass along to my mother. But also, I'm a librarian. I don't know if I told you that or not, but, and I have a lot of little cousins. So I think that these are some books that I would most definitely tell, or even buy, like I'll probably go out and buy them for my cousins and stuff like that, because they all love reading, and they're doing their little collecting all their books. So but yes, I've learned a lot.
Well, that's great. Do you have any more questions for me?
No.
No? Okay.
Good.
So I did that good of a job, man. That's amazing.
Oh, you are used to talking in front of people.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes my wife has to, do one of these. So it's like a very subtle hint.
Okay.
So I'll tend to go on and on. But anyway, I really do appreciate you being here.
Yep. Thank you for joining us, and feel free to come meet some of the other authors later during the weekend.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.